So, guys, it is official. The number 1 overall seed is Louisville. Within that bracket will be our very own Duke Blue Devils. They will be the number 2 seed. The number 3 will be Michigan State, the number 4 St. Louis, and there's a bunch of teams that we could talk about afterwards within that. So, Dan, I want to start with you right now. Duke is playing Albany in that first round game. A lot of people expect Duke to win, but after last year's loss to Lehigh, obviously, a lot of concerns there at the 2-15 matchup.
Yeah, obviously, you get another 2-15 matchup 2 years in a row. You got to think that Duke Nation right now has their heart kind of beating out of their chest after what happened in Greensboro last year against Lehigh. That being said, Albany, they don't have the star power that Lehigh did. I mean, Lehigh had C.J. McCollum, who could have easily been an All-American this year had he not run into some injury problems. But Albany definitely they don't have the tournament resume. They don't have a single win against anyone in the RPI top 50. I don't think they pose nearly as much of a challenge as a team like Lehigh did last year because they just don't have that one guy that can take over the game.
And if you look at that next round, Lincoln, it's a matchup between Creighton and Cincinnati. You have Doug McDermott on Creighton, Cincinnati, a team that maybe finished the season a little slow. Would either of those teams really give Duke a scare if it were to be lucky enough to get to the round of 32?
Yeah, I definitely think that either one of them could potentially, but I think Cincinnati definitely is a squad that has a higher potential as a team to give them a scare. Of course, Creighton coming in with a National Player of the Year contender Doug McDermott definitely has the potential to give the Blue Devils some trouble because he being a taller guard, we don't really have that fast, taller defender to keep up with him. However, I think as a whole team, we could definitely work them on the offensive end a whole lot better than we could Cincinnati, who could be looking to shove people like Mason Plumlee out of the post, be looking to harass Ryan Kelly at the three-point line, and just be more physical with our guards, which Duke has had trouble dealing with in the past in the NCAA tournament. So overall, I would love to see us playing Creighton if we do get past Albany in the second round, but it's probably going to be a Cincinnati squad who's going to be looking to come out and shove their way through.
And if you look at the next 4 teams, Dan, you have perhaps the weakest of the 14 chunks in this particular Midwest region going through Indianapolis. It will be Memphis, the winner of, I believe, Middle Tennessee and St. Mary's, and then Michigan State and Valpo are those 4 teams. A lot of people, you got to think that Michigan State's going to get through that particular area, correct?
I mean, Michigan State, barring any runs by Cinderella's out of that pod of 4 teams, Michigan State definitely looks like they have the best opportunity to make it through to Indianapolis. They're much better tested than a lot of these other squads. Having to play out of the Big Ten, Keith Appling has been one of the best players in that conference. And obviously the Big Ten has been probably the best conference in the country this season.
Right. So now we're going to the top side of this bracket, Lincoln, and we have Louisville, and North Carolina, A&T, and Liberty. I don't think either of those teams will have a chance against Louisville. And then you have Colorado State, Missouri, Oklahoma State, Oregon, St. Louis, New Mexico State. The first impressions you have of that, I mean, Oregon's a team that won the Pac-12. They scared a lot of people in the middle of the year. Oklahoma State, they have one of those star freshmen. And then St. Louis, a team that has really cruised through their conference play all year. What do you see as maybe your top things? And Dan, feel free to follow along.
First impressions, I see a really deep top half of that bracket. St. Louis, a very tough squad that Louisville could potentially have to go through if they do make it to the Sweet 16 up there. But you got Colorado State, a squad who has definitely overachieved from what they were expected to do at the beginning of the season. And of course, Missouri, who has played squads such as Florida, such as Kentucky, and can prove that they are a tournament team, although we'll just forget about last year's 2-15 matchup a few hours before the Blue Devils, of course. And then you have Oklahoma State and Oregon being the Pac-12 champion. It's a very deep 1 through 13, if you want to group them that way, matchup at the very top of the bracket. Do I think Louisville could come out on top and beat all of those the potential squads facing either Colorado State or Missouri? I think that they could win that game. They proved that by beating Syracuse in the Big East Championship that they are here to stay and they're going to be physical, and they're so dang fast with Russ Smith.
When you look at St. Louis especially, they're small. Coming out of the Atlantic 10, they're small. They only have 2 guys bigger than 6'8" on their roster. At the same time, they're also a team that they like to score by committee. 4 double-digit scorers on the year. They like to spread the ball around. At the same time, I don't know how well that necessarily lends itself to a matchup with a team like Oklahoma State. They're big, they're fast, they're physical, and Marcus Smart, I mean, he will just push that ball on you all day. He's going to make you outscore him. And I don't know if St. Louis is necessarily equipped to do that. I think of the mid-majors, St. Louis is definitely one of the stronger teams that I see in this field. At the same time, definitely between Oklahoma State and potential matchup with Louisville, the selection committee did not make it easy on them.
No, and as the number 1 overall seed, you would expect for them to get perhaps an easier side of the bracket, to say the least. But historically, the last couple of years, that really hasn't been the case.
I mean, Kentucky last year drew Duke as its own 2 seed, and people thought that could be a potentially very tough matchup for them had Duke not dropped the game really early. But yeah, no.
C.J. McCollum, darn him.
Duke's South region last year was probably the toughest region in the tournament and had Kentucky as number 1 overall seed. If I had to look at this bracket again holistically, I would probably say that might even be the case again this year, if you look at the 1 through 4 especially.